right, everybody, welcome back to the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. It is episode 6 coming to you on Tuesday, June 21st. It's about 5 o'clock Central Standard Time here in the state of hockey, lovely Minnesota. I'm Josh, as always, joined by Troy. Hey, Troy, what's up?
Hey, Josh, what's going on, man? I know it's just very, very hot outside, and I'm sick of it.
Yeah, me too. I think that's a common misconception about Minnesota, is obviously we're known for our cold weather, but it also gets stupid hot in the summer.
Yep, stupid hot, and we have a ton of mosquitoes.
Yeah, and they're about the size of horses this year.
Yeah, they're brutal.
We're filming this or recording this a little bit earlier today than normal. We're trying to sandwich the podcast in between lacrosse games and baseball games, as Troy and I are living the dad life for sure. But we think we have a great show, lots of good stuff to talk about, and we'll get into that shortly. There is one note I do want to make regarding next week's show. We're excited to be joined, where we will be joined by Chris from Card Ladder, and he's going to talk about the state of the hockey card market and the sports card market as a whole. I know there's a lot of uncertainty given the economic environment and people's nervousness and fears around just what's happening in the global economy. And obviously, as we look at sports cards and hockey cards, people are nervous about what that could mean to the value of their collection, I think, in the short term. So excited about that, Troy.
Yeah, so if anyone that's listened to our show knows that we use Card Ladder a lot, Chris is a fantastic resource. We're very excited to have him. He is super knowledgeable on just the economy, the market, everything around cards. So we are really, really excited to have him, and I can't wait.
Yep, so that'll be next week. But for this week, Troy, why don't you run through the game plan?
Sure. Today we will start with the Stanley Cup Finals update and any impacts we are seeing in the card market after the first 3 games. Next, Josh will look at card grading and if you should be grading in today's environment. We will then give an update on some hobby news and specifically the big announcements in the past couple weeks from eBay around their new vault service and a launch of a live marketplace. We will then give a recap and our thoughts on the recent Upper Deck Series 2 release. And finally, we will end with our personal pickups and or sales.
All right, let's get rolling with the Cup Finals. Well, Troy, it looks like Tampa Bay might actually try to make a series out of this.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised that they actually came to play in Game 3 and not laid a couple duds like they did in Game 1 and 2.
It's real similar almost to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Rangers, where they looked not great the first 2 games and then got home, and all of a sudden we're almost a different team.
Yeah, and it's that same thing where I don't think they're panicking. They're such a skilled team. They've been here before. There's no panic. They're back at home. They just got to keep playing their game and hopefully keep Pepper and Kemper or whoever Colorado decides is going to play goalie that night.
What are your thoughts on the Vasilevskiy blocker side shots?
It's a legit concern. They've shown enough video, and that's the thing with these NHL teams. They have so many analytics that when they look at it, I'm assuming it showed blocker side, and now we're seeing it getting hit, and that's where the goals are scoring. Obviously, now he knows that. Tampa Bay knows that, so he'll work on it. He'll think about it. But it looks like it's a trend that will probably keep going on.
Yeah, I think they said in the broadcast 29 goals to the blocker area in the playoffs so far.
Yeah, and just to give a little background on just the stats that they have, I actually attended the NHL Coaches Association clinic last week. They showed us the SAP Insights app and all the stuff they have for games, for live stats, for past games, and it's amazing. There's over 150 data points, and I can tell you that where you score your goals on this particular goalie is on there, so I know they're looking at that.
Sure. A couple other news and notes points before we get into hobby impact of the Cup Finals so far. Kucherov was hurt in Game 3. According to ESPN, again, it's Tuesday. It looks like he's probable for Game 4, so that's good news for Tampa Bay. It doesn't look like Braden Point is going to be able to play, though, so that's a bummer there. I don't know. What do you think? What's your prediction for Game 4 and beyond?
I'm sticking with my guns. I'm saying Tampa Bay wins it. They're going to get some momentum from being at home. I just don't like Kemper in net, and I don't think the backup, Francois, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I don't think he's the greatest thing either. So Yeah, Franzus. So I think if Tampa Bay found themselves in game 3 and comes out and plays their game like they can, that they're still going to win this series. So that's my prediction.
Yeah, I don't see Kemper starting game 4. As long Wild fans, we've watched Kemper for many years. Yep. And I kind of think that you're getting what you get with him right now. So,
yeah, he's a big goalie, but when things get tough, he seems to fold. He folded with the Wild when things got tough and he got scored on a lot. And it happened a lot with the Wild, and we've seen it firsthand. And it'll be interesting to see how he bounces back if he gets to play again.
Okay, let's look at some of the hockey card storylines that we've been tracking so far through Game 3 of the Cup Finals. And I want to start with Colorado. I guess with the, what do you call him, the darling of the finals so far, Valeri Nichushkin. He's had a great series, played real well. As you'd expect, the card market has reacted. A week ago, you could have gotten his raw 2013 Young Gun in the $3 to $4 range. And right after Game 3, they were spiking almost close to $25. Since then, though, the last couple of days, they've come down and they've backed down, where today I think they've been selling in the $9 to $10 range. I honestly don't think there's a robust long-term market for Nichushkin. Really, the opportunity right now is for sellers. I think it's also a good case study for a point that we made, it was either last week or the week before, about timing your auctions to the end of these games. So again, the point we just talked about, had you timed your auction at the end of Game 3, you would have sold in the $25 range. 2 days later, it's still probably a healthy profit, but you've lost 60% of your upside by not being able, right there when the hype is at its highest.
Yeah, and even with the timing, look at 1 and 3 day auctions. You don't always have to do 7-day auctions, especially when the market can get hot real quick.
That's a great point. So moving on to Makar and all the hyperbole continues. I keep hearing Bobby Orr dropped about 15 times a game by the broadcasters, and his play, his age, the fact that he's doing stuff that hasn't been done in a long time on the ice is obviously made him probably the darling of the hockey card world this year. From a Young Guns perspective, and looking at like PSA 10, PSA 9, BGS, they've stayed relatively flat in the past week, which I think is kind of interesting. Where we have seen some big jumps is in other rookie cards, though. So beyond Young Guns, we tend to look at their SP Authentic Future Watch autos. A week or so ago, you could have bought those raw in the $1,000 range. And in the last 2 days, there's been, I think, 3 or 4 sales in the $1,500 range. So about a 50% increase there. Another little note is, I think 2 weeks ago, I mentioned in our personal pickup section that I had bought 2019 Allure Pink Diamond SP rookie of Makar's. And I bought that for under $14 at the time. I was looking this morning, and there's a bunch of sales in almost the $50 range. So I think broadly, his cards are going up. Probably going to be a little bit of a land grab for any Makar rookie people can get their hands on.
Are you thinking about selling your Allure Pink Diamond?
Probably I will. We'll stay tuned on that. Just briefly looking at Mackinnon, hit pricing for his 2013 Young Guns is essentially flat. I think with him, again, it comes down to, does he win the cup or not? One Avalanche player, though, that I think is really interesting and curious and maybe even a little confusing to me is Mikko Rantanen. In the past 2 weeks, values for his 2015 Young Guns PSA 10 and PSA 9 have both dropped. Pretty significantly, too. His PSA 9 or his PSA 10, which is a pop of 608, is down 39% to $152. And even if you look back over the past 6 months, his value's down almost 45%. So he's been sliding for a good 6 months. And that's curious to me, given how good of a playoffs he's had.
Yeah, that one's interesting because when you're talking about McKinnon, the first thing, with the cup going on, what jumps out to me, he hasn't done much in the first 3 games. I think he has 2 points. So I could see that being flat. There's not a lot of excitement right there. It's more at the end of the day if he wins the cup. Rantanen, I thought, has played great, and it's interesting to see his stuff coming down like that. And I don't have a good answer for why, but I like him, and it might be a buying opportunity.
Well, I think, too, if it's coming down right now, given how he's playing, I would wait a month, and you'll probably get a really good deal. Yeah. And,
Good point.
Either the hobby just isn't going to accept him as one of the stars that drives value up, or, maybe it'll take another strong campaign in the 2022-23 season too. But I guess to get him up to that next tier, like I said, I still think probably, given what his price is sliding now, wait a month or so and you'll get even better deals on that. Okay, moving on to Tampa Bay really quickly. I was really curious, given his shaky start in games 1 and 2, to look at the Vasilevskiy market. Values for his 2014 Young Gun PSA 10 has been largely flat. It's a really low pop card, so I'm not super surprised by that. There just really hasn't been any sales. Where we have seen a dip, though, is in his raw Young Guns values. On June 1st, this card was selling around the $325 range, and most recently it's going for about $270, so it's down about 17%, which to me is completely expected given how he played in games 1 and 2.
He did not look good in those first couple of games, and so there was going to be some pushback. And then with how well he played in game 3, I'm interested to see what happens if he can ride his wave and play like the Vasilevskiy that we are used to.
I think similar to Mackinnon, the only thing that's going to move his prices up is winning another cup at this point.
Yeah.
Looking at Stamkos real quick, his 2008 Young Gun BGS 9.5 with the pop of 918 had dropped about 24% after game 2. So again, I think he was being impacted as the captain of the team. Just the general performance of the Lightning in games 1 and 2, it had hit his value pretty hard. But since then, his prices have rebounded back to a value of about $280. And so it's only down about 1% for the past couple weeks. I don't know about you, Troy, but $280 for a gem mint Stamkos Young Guns to me seems like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it does. It does seem like a good deal. And I was actually looking at his, pricing trend of that BGS 9.5, and it kind of fluctuates up down like everyone, and it's settled on that 280, which seems just a little bit higher than maybe the past average for the 6 months. But the type of player he is and what he can do, I think it's a great deal.
Yeah, so I think that's one I might look at this offseason too, and just pick up as a longer term hold. I think at this point, given he's so this far into his career, it's probably not a great short-term opportunity to flip or anything like that, but to get a certainly Hall of Fame player, significant contributor on a team that's won multiple cups, that just feels like a good deal to me. And then finally, wrapping up, Troy's favorite defenseman, Nikita Kucherov. His values are flat. I just had to find a way to get that into the conversation. So.
Don't believe me. We're looking at the shirts. We're going to get a picture of Kucherov holding a Norris trophy, and we're going to sell these, and they're going to make a ton of money. Just kidding.
No, but again, his values are flat. I just think the general trend with all the Lightning players are, win the cup or not, and that's where
win the cup or nothing's going to happen.
I feel like it's been a weird year for card grading. Would you agree, Troy?
Yeah, and we've kind of hit on this before in previous episodes. Grading seems to just be a mess right now, or not a mess, but I just don't really understand a lot what's going on with grading and values versus raw and kind of the stuff we've talked about before.
Yeah, and I think because of that, we wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive and try to figure out, I guess, what's the new rule of thumb for card grading. Probably the best place to start, though, is by talking about the grading from a collector's perspective. When it comes to collecting, and I think this will be a theme of our show, is there's almost not a lot to say, because to me, the right answer is always do what you want, do what you like. If you love the slab of a particular grading company or the label or their grading methodology or how strict or stringent or not strict or stringent you think they are, it's really hard to argue with that because collecting is really subjective at heart. And there's no real way to, I guess, debate or share common information around that. But I do think it is worth making the point that, yeah, if you're a collector and the value of grading company A is greater than B, but you like grading company B better, go with that. Do what you ultimately want to do. But from the intent of this conversation, or I guess purpose of this conversation, we're going to talk a little more about values and how what I think the standard, whether you call it a ratio or rule of thumb, has been turned on its head in the past year. Like I said, it's been a weird year for grading. I still have cards that I sent to PSA in March of 2021. Honestly, I don't even remember what they are, and I'm afraid to look. Because
I'm just curious if they've been graded yet. Like, if they popped in the report that you can see online and it's taken a while to get back to you, or what?
They're in review. But honestly, the card market was a completely different landscape then.
Yeah.
And I know that a good chunk of those cards are pretty much worthless, probably at PSA 10 even. So I'm expecting it to be a total dumpster fire. And I just want to rip the Band-Aid and get it over with.
Well, guess what? You're not the only one. I'm sure a lot of people and probably a lot of listeners are in the same boat as you with some of their orders.
Definitely. But so what the PSA backlog has done, though, it's created a lot of opportunities for new companies or existing companies to come in and maybe capture some of the market share that they have. So we've seen companies like SGC take a more prominent role in grading of all sports. They were kind of always known as the vintage baseball company and really made a big push. I think did a great job in the respect of turnaround times. They're really the only company in the past year that you can get consistent, good 20, 21 day turnaround time again at a really good, reasonable price. Like we've used group submitters. And I think, what do we pay, Troy? Like $24, $25 a card, something like that.
Yeah, 24, I think it is. And just on the SGC and the turnaround time, one thing they did is they never made the news for blowing through that by like a month or two. They always stuck around that. You might get your cards back a day or two later than the stated business days, but they did a really good job on handling all that. And when they needed to, I think they did extend it a little bit when they had to and got ahead of it. But now they're right back to where they were at having those really good turnaround times.
Mm-hmm. We've also seen CSG try to step out of the kind of comic book world or TCG world, and they're really trying to make a footing in the sports card market. I think most notably, they did the deal with eBay for authenticity guarantee. So if you sell a card over a certain amount, it goes to a third party, kind of like StockX for shoes, and then CSG authenticates the card, then sends it along to ultimately the buyer. So obviously it's smart from the standpoint of it's going to help build their brand equity around sports cards. And one would assume that, people will look at them more seriously when grading their sports cards options. Not a favorite of mine, but I totally understand and appreciate what they're doing. We've also seen a whole slew of new companies that generally we're not going to spend a lot of time on because, as we've seen with some, like probably HGA, that's the one I will mention, I guess, briefly, is it tends to be, like with most new businesses, a roller coaster, to say the least. There's been some ups. I think HGA came out of the gate really, really strong. And then I haven't spent too much time looking into them, but it seems like, from what I understand, they tried to increase their throughput a little too much, more than they can handle, and the wheels sort of spun off at that point.
Yeah, at HGA, they had such a good idea with the custom labels, and you could actually request what you wanted the label to look like. They would match it to the card, but they just didn't follow through on any of the basic fundamental stuff that you need to do as a card grader, and that really, really hurt them. And then I think the president, Tyler, actually stepped away, so he's not even involved anymore. So it seems like they are really in a tough place right now.
A lot of flux and transition there. And so I guess now where we're at today is we have PSA is still, again, working through the backlog. They are starting to reintroduce more services. There's a value service that they've been slowly reintroducing, I guess probably is the best word. I think that we're probably within 6 months, maybe we'll have the new normal. I actually should mention, too, the couple notable Canadian grading companies, since we are talking hockey cards here, KSA and Mint. Honestly, I don't know a lot about these companies. I've started to look, through this podcast into them a little bit more, but we've been in sort of our own little hobby bubble here in Minnesota and really haven't been exposed to them a lot. So if anyone wants to school us on either KSA or Mint, feel free to message us or do so on the social channels, because those are a couple companies that we want some more information on.
Yeah, I'd be curious if anyone has feedback on how they compare in value to PSA or SGC, if it's comparable or are they behind or what?
I kind of feel like KSA is comparable to SGC from the few examples that I've looked at, but I could be wrong there. And then Mint's a little bit lower. But I do like the look of the Mint slab, so that's just personal opinion. So hopefully that's a decent, I guess, recap of the overall grading landscape today. But to me, what's been most fascinating is how the value ratios have really flipped on their heads in the last 6 to 9 months. I guess what I mean by value ratios is the relationship in value between raw and the graded 8, 9, 9.5, 10, which is our gem mint. And I guess maybe a good place to start here is talking about the standard ratio that I've always used, and I'll be interested, Troy, if this is similar to how you've looked at it. But basically, when I would decide whether to grade a card or not, I would research prices and I would equate raw to a PSA 8.
That's exactly what I used. What I used was PSA 8 was my raw comp or baseline. So
then I was at that point, I guess you're betting on, well, do I do a good enough examination or pre-grade self-process? I don't know what you want to call it, where if it's an 8, I'm going to be, even money and I'll have upside at a 9 or 10. And so the ratio that I've typically used at 9 is about 50 to 75% over raw.
Yep.
A BGS, so this would be a PSA 9, I should say. A BGS 9.5, about 2 to 3 times raw, and a PSA 10, 3 to 4 times raw.
I think the only difference there is PSA 10, I usually said was 5 times raw. That's just what I used.
So you used a little bit more of a multiplier.
Yeah.
Recently, what we've seen is that raw cards are very close or even to matching BGS 9 or PSA 9 pricing.
Yep.
And it's making grading in not only some, but most cases, only a plus from a value perspective if your card it comes out gem mint, which to me is just crazy.
Yeah.
And so I guess to illustrate this point, I looked up at a few quick examples, and I try to get a mix of different types of cards, not just to focus on the Young Guns so much. But we will start with our one Young Guns example. So you have the 2019 Adam Fox Young Guns. So the raw card of that sold on the 18th, a couple days ago, for $65. A day later, a PSA 9 sold for $51.
I don't understand. I can't. I know we've talked about this before and trying to wrap our heads around it. I know we're going to get in. You'll get into some of why you think this is happening, but I just sit there and look at that. I'm just staring at it on the screen. 65 versus 51. It just, to me, makes no sense.
Yeah, it really hurts the case from a value and asset perspective to send your card to get graded.
Yeah.
So let's look at another example. We'll leave Young Guns now. We'll look at Cale Makar's Future Watch Auto out of 999. So that's the 2019 SP Authentic. The most recent raw sale for that card was on June 20th. So that'd be yesterday from when we're recording. And that went for $1,525, which is up significantly just from the prior sale. The most recent PSA 9 sold for $1,568 on June 9th. So you got a $43 premium for a PSA 9 over raw. Even in SGC 9.5. So again, this is the one grade that, and I think actually a big advantage SGC has from a value perspective is it's the one company that has that sort of middle grade between mint and gem mint. It's the Mint Plus, is that what they call it? Or I guess I'm not even sure what the name is.
I think it is. Or if they don't call it, I think the hobby's been calling it that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, we're talking about the Cale Makar Future Watch Auto to $999. The last SGC 9.5 sold for $1,800. So that's less than $300.
Yep, less than $300 difference.
And if you calculate the grading fee, it's even in shipping and insurance, it's even worse ROI there. For the last example, I kind of picked a little more of a random one. I used our boy Dollar Bill Kirill and took the OPC Platinum. It's a 2020 OPC Platinum Color Wheel rookie. I think one of the more popular variations that we've seen sell over the last 6 months or so. So the last raw sale for this card was $75 on June 13th. A PSA 8 on June 9th sold for $45. Now, to me, what's really scary about this example is, again, if you go back to sort of the old way that I would look at this personally, or the old rule of thumb that I used, if I'm thinking, okay, if equivalent to an 8, I'm even, you're losing 40% of your value if this comes out at an 8. And when you think about OPC Platinum, those are harder to estimate.
Yeah.
What the ultimate grade is going to be, because on any of the kind of the chrome or type cards, the surface is always, it seems like a total gamble when you send it in to be graded. So if you said, okay, I wanted to send this card to PSA, so I'm going to buy the Color Wheel Kaprizov for $75. I'm going to spend the $50 through PSA to get graded, so I'm now $125 into the card. It comes back at an 8. It's worth $45.
Yeah, and what about just buying the PSA card, cracking it, and selling it raw? You got your built-in profit margin there if you wanted to try to do that, or if
I hadn't even thought of that.
If that discrepancy keeps getting bigger or gets out of whack on certain cards, I mean, there's almost like an arbitrage opportunity there where you got some baked-in value.
Now, I think it is a fair point to mention, so staying on this Kaprizov color wheel example, a PSA 10 does sell for about $360, right? So in the hypothetical example where I bought the card for $75, spent $50 to grade it, I'm invested $125 at that point. There is a good return at PSA 10, but I'm not confident in OPC Platinum. No. So I would stay away. I'd either, if I really wanted the card, I'd probably buy the 10, or maybe if I was an investor, I'd look at the 9. But I'm not sending that card in to get graded. I don't know about you.
Agree.
Okay, so those are a couple examples. We could honestly go on forever, but hopefully you guys all get the point. And so now I want to talk about, why do I think this is happening? To me, I believe it starts with that, I'll say many to maybe most people assume that any of the single that they buy is on eBay is going to gem.
Yep.
Right, they're chasing the kind of the lottery fantasy that, frankly, all of us fall. we're all in this hobby.
I was going to say, like, when I first started buying cards, that's kind of what I thought. I was like, oh, I'll get this raw card and it'll come and be in just great shape. And you learn pretty quick that that's not the case. Even when you start opening packs, I had that thought that, oh, I pull it out of the pack, it should be in great shape. Well, we've seen that's not the case either.
I guess my next theory is maybe a little more hypothetical or theoretical, but when I think about why this could be happening, in this marketplace, scarcity drives price. As the hobby's grown over the last couple of years, there's no doubt about that. There's more hockey card collectors today than there was 4 years ago. We also, though, have to acknowledge that we know the print runs have increased. And I think that that's what's driven people to more numbered cards or short prints or super short prints, and made folks a little wary of, I don't really consider a Young Guns card, I guess, in particular, a base card, because they're not necessarily in every pack, but it seems like it's a little bit of a hybrid, I guess. So given that scarcity drives price, it seems like that the value kind of gravitating towards the gem mints is the market's way of trying to create scarcity, where there's this doubt over what the actual print runs of these cards is. I don't know. Does that make sense, Troy?
It does make sense. And I've thought about this, and I can't come up with a better reason than what you've given why it is. I think it's absolutely insanity. But I do think your second point there that you just made kind of makes sense in my head. At least it's a working hypothesis if we want to go off of. I think it holds more than just the first one, where it's, I think every, raw card I get on eBay is a gem mint, or people are thinking that. Sure. Obviously some do, but I don't think that one might have as much weight as the second theory you have.
And to me, why that makes sense is because if you buy that theory, then it would devalue everything that's not a gem mint.
Yep, exactly.
Right. And would proportionally increase the value of a raw card because of the potential that could be that gem mint.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I mean, these are just theories. Ultimately, I don't know probably any better than Troy does or anyone else out there that's listening. And I guess I wanted to finish this conversation with some thoughts on if the old rule of thumb or value ratios don't work, what's a new rule of thumb that we might be able to apply to make more sense of when and we, I guess, should not grade our cards. So I'll start again with collectors, and here's my broken record. Do what you want, right? If you have a card and you just want it in a slab, you have never had the intention to sell it, you're going to pass it down to your grandkids. There's no rhyme or reason to why you should pick company A or B, just whatever floats your boat, as we like to say here in Minnesota. That's what you should do. So next I want to talk about move to investors then. When we talk about, I guess, investors versus flippers, what I mean by that is if you're planning on holding cards over, I guess, the medium or long term, so in the 6 months to a year range or even longer, I guess this is how I would approach it. First of all, we still have to recognize that PSA still holds the most value. So ultimately, if your goal is to maximize the asset of any given card that you have, PSA is going to be the best route to do that. And then I would put BGS second and SGC third. And this is where I would point out again that I've noticed that on the Canadian side, that KSA pricing is pretty similar to SGC. So you could slide that in there. It's super important to do research, and a lot of research, to really be comfortable that you're going to make a wise choice in whether or not to submit your cards. Always start by looking at the values of PSA 8, 9, 10, or any of the BGS or SGC equivalents, and factor that into your ROI at each level. I would also, again, this is where brand becomes important too. OPG can be really hard, as we mentioned, to gauge what's going to be what could come back a 10 versus a 9 versus an 8. There's certain brands that it doesn't matter, right? We've seen PMGs, precious metal gems, that have grade 6s that are selling for $50,000. So you have to educate yourself not only to look at grading as a whole, but on each individual set and where grades are typically falling for those sets. Another thing that I would look at and that can help you do this is calculate the gem rate for each of the companies, because they do vary quite a bit. So if I have my OPG Platinum Color Wheel Kaprizov and I'm considering sending that to PSA, I can go into the PSA Pop Report. I can see how many gem mints or how many cards have gotten the PSA 10 grade, and I can divide into that the total cards submitted for that particular card and factor in my gem rate. So all things being equal, if it's there's a big difference in whether or not it makes sense to grade a particular card if the gem rate's 40% versus 70%.
Yep, exactly. And I was going to say too, one thing people got to remember too, sometimes they forget. They obviously know it, but just remember, you have to pay, to send it in, to ship it, to get it graded. Don't forget about that little piece when you're looking at, does it make sense to send stuff in?
And then, this is more, I think, on the common sense, but inspect your cards super carefully. Use tools like lighted magnifying glasses. Both Troy and I use 60x magnifiers, and believe me, it's not foolproof.
Nope.
We've been convinced cards are gem and come back way worse than that. Clean wipe your cards down with like a microfiber cloth. You can use centering tools to help try to calculate the centering, look at the back centering as well. But, just try to make your best estimate before sending that card in. I guess one other maybe qualifier or note that I want to make on this too, and it goes back to the ratios, is that we'll see with vintage cards that there is almost a different ratio system, especially like that value to grading ratio. So in particular, if you look at like what most people would call the junk wax era cards, so take like a 1990 Upper Deck Mike Modano or something like that, where you can go right now and buy a raw version of that card for $1 or $2, depending on auction or buy it now. And the PSA 10 could be, maybe like Yager would be a better example, could be in the $100, $150 range. Right. So there is much more of an upside, but again, you have to factor in population count. You have to, this is where gem rate too becomes real important, because boatloads of those cards have been submitted And in most cases, the gem rate's very low. And when you look at a vintage card like a Yager, Madonna, Owen Nolan, or there's a whole bunch of examples, or like Gretzky's or Lemieux's from that era, if they come back 8 or 9, they're almost worthless at that point. So it's just something to consider there.
Speaking from experience.
Yes. So, Troy, anything from like an investment standpoint that you think I forgot or left out?
No, I think you hit everything right on the head. Just really think about it. Another thing you can do too is look at each, you might have mentioned this, I can't remember if you did, each grading company is pretty transparent about what is what a PSA 10 is. There's a whole description on their criteria. Website, what it is and what an SGC 9 is and an 8. And, get familiar with that stuff. See what they say. What do they say for the centering? And that can really help you decide on if you should send a card in, as well as all the other points that Josh made.
Yeah, and I guess one final point I want to make on the flipping side, just going to that really quickly. To me, in flipping, when it comes to grading, is that the turnaround time is almost one of the biggest factors. And although it doesn't have near the value of a PSA, SGC, like we've already mentioned, is tending to have the quickest and most consistent turnaround times. So these are cards like new rookies that come out when people are still really excited about the new release of a set and you want to get that card out back real fast. I think like for what the $50 or so you can get, was a 5-day service or something like that with the SGC.
5 days.
That can be a really good option to when you need to maximize the value of that card by selling it fast. So just a note there from a flipping perspective. I guess we'll wrap up by just saying, if you guys have any thoughts on grading or want to challenge any of my assumptions or Troy's assumptions, again, please either contact us, message us on Instagram or on Facebook. And we're trying to learn too. So we'd love to get your feedback and input on how you're approaching grading today, where it seems like it's sort of the Wild West.
For hobby news, we have had some interesting developments in the past couple of weeks, mostly from eBay. So I wanted to kind of jump in and take a look at what they announced. These announcements, they have to do with the collectible space, but they're really geared at the trading card space to start out. The first thing eBay announced was a vault service going live for cards. Now, I believe they came out with this, they were going to do a vault service in around March, but now it's kind of going live and they've had some people using it. So they kind of are making a big push about the vault service. And then the second announcement was they are coming out with a live marketplace. So that to me is a very intriguing piece of information. So before we kind of start discussing this, I just want to give everyone, kind of a quick look at what these types of services are. So for the vault service from eBay, it's kind of your standard vault service. It's nothing new. People have done this in the past. eBay saying it's a climate-controlled vault, 31,000 square feet, all the usual with security. They got dedicated professionals. You start reading into it, you can see, what kind of cards are eligible. Right now, it's eligible on graded cards. It can be sent directly to the eBay vault at checkout. Since it's located in Delaware, sales tax will not be charged for items sent or traded within the vault. But there are selling fees, but right now they are waiving all those. So, they're doing let's waive a lot of the fees to start with, and we'll see what happens. But you can expect most of these fees, there's going to be some fees added as they keep going past 6 months into next year. I was going to look at some of the fees, but there's so many out there. You can look on eBay's site about the vault and what it entails and all the fees that were going to come up. But I guess I wanted to get into just the whole idea that, these vault services aren't new. We've seen PWCC has a vault. Golden Company has a vault. There's other companies that offer this kind of offering. But what's interesting is kind of how late eBay is jumping into this. I think eBay, they're the biggest market in the world for trading cards, but they have been really slow to offer enhancements. They are getting better. They've done the, price checker, the authenticity guarantee.
Sure.
And now they're starting to add the vault. And to me, I don't know how I feel about the vault. It doesn't personally get my attention. I have little interest in a vault service. But I'm curious if you, Josh, if you think this is something they're reacting to and I don't know if I really am intrigued by their vault offering.
It doesn't really personally appeal to me either. And me knowing the type of collector you are, I don't know why you would ever use something like this. I don't really understand the practical examples. I get it, right? So if you are an investor and seller and you want quick, easy transactions where you can have an instant transfer of asset on a sale and maybe avoid some sort of fees, but I don't think we even understand the total fee structure because I know there's going to be storage fees and different fees that we're not used to from an eBay perspective to begin with. And so I think I've heard of like investment funds or hedge funds coming into the space in the last couple of years, and that's a lot of the real big cards have driven up prices. I think if you're almost coming at it from an institutional investing perspective, I think a vault might make sense where you really, there's zero collectible interest in the hobby. You're just trying to buy something low and then later sell it high. But for me, as we've talked about, I am much more of an investor. I still love the cards and I still want to, for the time I'm going to own it, I want to be able to look at it and appreciate it and display it in my house or wherever it may be. It's not for me, but it is. I think you're spot on. What's really important with this is there's the business term "who moved my cheese," and eBay has largely been the same service for 10 years now or more. And they're seeing other people move their cheese and come in and innovate within the marketplace where they have not, and they're playing catch up now.
For sure. That seems like a lot of what is going on. And I want to go back to your point about, me being more of a collector. I could see this being an option if, I had really high value cards that I don't feel comfortable keeping at my house or near me or in a place of business.
Like as an
then
alternative,
I could see it being an option.
Yeah, as an alternative
to a bank vault.
Your safety deposit box.
Yeah, in a safety deposit box. I could see it being an option if that's something you'd want to do. Now, good thing for me, I don't have any valuable cards that I would have to send to the vault. And again, I'm kind of like Josh. I like looking at them. I like going down and looking at my case every week and seeing what's in there and, reading the backs of the cards and looking at my boxes and figuring out some way to kill time by doing some new organizational system. So from the vault service, I think there is a play. I like how if it's a really high value and you want to use it for that, for storing, great. Or if you just don't have any interest in keeping the cards and you want a quick, instant transaction, because you can sell them and nothing has to happen. You don't have to ship it. It just stays in the vault if that other person wants to keep it in the vault. And there it is. All it is, the name change of who the owner is. Yeah. And so that kind of reminded me a little bit of like Star Stock, how when they came out with their kind of trading marketplace. Now, hopefully this doesn't, I don't think eBay is going to go the way of Star Stock and have all those issues, but it's an interesting concept. I like how you said, it's kind of, they're playing catch up to what the market has been providing already. So the next thing that eBay kind of announced, and this one is a little more interest to me, is the whole live marketplace. eBay announced they're launching. It's called eBay Live. Wow, that was a great name. Amazing. No one could have guessed it. It's going to be a dedicated shopping platform. It gives users a way to purchase products in a live and interactive environment. All the normal spiel that you would hear. From a Minnesota standpoint, being that we are here, it's interesting. They're really pushing. If you know who DJ Ski is, I think me and Josh became familiar with him with Topps Project 70. He created some of the cards for those in baseball. But in good Minnesota fashion, we have to find every Minnesota connection to a story, and he's from Minneapolis. So that's our connection to DJ Ski. But he's really pushing it. I see ads all the time on the internet. Obviously, he probably comes with some of my cookies, but I've seen a lot of push from eBay on that. Again, this is another thing where this isn't new. eBay's jumping late into the game. We've seen Whatnot. We've seen Card Shop Live. You'd be surprised to know that Amazon actually has a live selling platform that I don't think anyone knows about. I remember seeing one thing on there and then it's kind of just died or people just forgot about it. But again, like I said, this one intrigues me more because I actually like the live auction aspect. I am really want to see how they run it. I am not a Whatnot fan. I do not like breakers screaming and yelling and screaming about pulling fire every 2 seconds. That's not me. I like more calm interactions. I like Card Shop Live for what they've done recently. And I know I've talked to Josh about this where I've actually bought stuff on there in live auctions, gotten to breaks and stuff. So this one's a little more interesting to me how they do it.
I think I share the fact that this is probably a bigger deal than the vault as well. I could honestly see the majority of all card sales being done by live auction within the next 2 or 3 years, especially for cards that are lower in value. For premium auctions, if you're selling a $100,000 card, you need a week or more or a month because you're looking for a very small pool of buyers and you need a longer period of time to make sure that they have access or that they know that the auction is up and that they have the opportunity to bid on it. For $5, $10, $15, $20 to $100 cards, I think what live auctions do is it appeals to from both the buyer and seller perspective, our immediate sense of gratification. Right? If I'm a seller and I want to sell a $10 card, I don't want to wait a week to sell the card. And if I'm buying and want to buy that card and I make a bid, but there's 3 days left in the auction, that's not very satisfying either.
Yep.
It just seems to me, kind of like the DVD made more sense than the VHS tape. I think for lower value cards, this type of selling platform will seem to make more sense. So, but like you said, again, they're reacting. And I think when you're as big of a company as eBay, it's almost becomes more the strategy is you let other people break eggs and then you use your infinite resources and piggy bank to go in and quickly gobble up market share from that perception or from that or point of view. So to me, that makes sense.
Definitely. So this will be a couple of intriguing things that they're launching that we'll kind of watch. We are recording this on Tuesday that we've said, and they actually are going live with the first eBay Live marketplace thing tomorrow. So Wednesday evening. So if anyone hears this and wants to jump in and look at it, you can.
Yeah. And I guess one final point that I'll make on live auctions in the live marketplace is I do wonder though, if this will impact a small seller. Because from what I've observed in looking at Whatnot or Card Shop Live or other live auctions, it says it's really the reputation and gravitas of the seller that makes a big difference, right? Because it's announced as the example is DJ Ski is going live with an auction. That's going to drive a lot of people. If Josh starts a live auction, how am I going to differentiate myself from other sellers? And drive people that where at least in the current system of eBay is that it's one main, everybody's competing on, in one auction system and the playing field's a little more even that way. So it'll be interesting to see how this would impact smaller, newer, especially sellers that don't have their reputation built out to that point.
And then definitely just what eBay uses also to police it. What happens when someone pulls a card and they don't ship it to them? Does eBay step in? And I'm sure they can just boot you. And with the amount of resources eBay has in the audience, you're probably going to reach. That's probably enough to keep most people in line. So again, interesting to watch, and we'll keep following this for the next 6 months or so.
Okay, so I wanted to do a quick recap of Series 2. Obviously, last week we had the Series 2 release. It's one of the bigger releases of the year. Very strong rookie checklist in it. Some interesting inserts and shorts prints, both announced and unannounced. And Troy and I ripped a couple of boxes and just wanted to share our perspective. So I did open a couple hobby boxes. I was reasonably impressed with the condition of the cards. So kudos to Upper Deck for, at least in the boxes I got, not destroying the cards while packaging them. I don't know how common this was for you all that open up hobby boxes. I did get a lot of OPG inserts, and I think there's almost 5 or 6 packs.
Incredible amount of OPG inserts.
It almost felt like at one point I was opening an OPG hobby box. And so at first that kind of irked me a little bit, but then as I reflected on it, because a lot of those were rookies, I thought, well, I would rather have an OPG rookie than some of what I would call the more, cheesy inserts that Upper Deck has done, like electromagnetic, or even some like the rookie retrospectives or debuts, or the Hundo Ps or anything like that, that really I have no interest in. So I've come around on that aspect of it. There are a couple cool chases with photo variations, unannounced super short sprints. Like we did an Instagram post today showing, I think it was like the rookie star acetate. Those are pretty cool. And I guess in general, I do like that Upper Deck is adding more SP variations, or SPs and variations, because it, at times, and this is not just Series 2 this year, but going back over the last few years, it feels like you're opening a pack and looking for that one card and could care less about every other card in the pack. So I think the more interest that they can generate in keeping you in keeping your focus throughout all the cards is ultimately a smart move and a good thing for them.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you've heard me complain about this enough, but I do like that, they got the image variations, kind of got to hunt for those to see what they are. But I just wish there was some way on the back, either through a code or something, that they could indicate that maybe you have one of these short prints or image variations that are unlisted on a checklist, because that always drives me nuts. And we've seen it in the Instagram post. Someone put, well, great, now I have to go through all my cards again to make sure I don't have one, because I think I saw that M or that jersey on one card. So that's just me, personal complaint, but I like the hunt. I get it. It's fun.
Well, and I think someday if we ever get Upper Deck on our pod, that's definitely something you can suggest or ask them. It seems like because of the really valuable chases, that hobby is probably a lot better option than retail, at least from my perspective, and looking at the price points. If you're going after the high gloss or UD exclusives or the clear cut, Young Guns clear cuts, or any of those other big chases, at $99, $95, or roughly $100, it seems like a pretty good deal at that point. I've even gone to some local card shops and found it at the same price, right around the $100 range that you find at the big online retailers. So pricing seems pretty consistent there. As far as values go, they pretty much what we thought they would be. It seems like Cider is definitely the big chase, followed by Raymond. Mason McTavish from the Ducks, his sales have been pretty strong right out of the gate. Maybe that's I wouldn't call it a surprise, but that's something to note. And I think we're already starting to see him pull back a little bit, like you'd expect. You're always going to get those first couple days. The market's going to get set. People are going to be most excited. Tons of people have just been waiting for the more at Cider, Young Guns. And so they're going to be really aggressive in making those purchases. And we'll see those probably go down in the 10 to 15% range, even further over the next couple weeks. I do want to make a couple points, though. I think given the strength of the checklist, if you have hobby boxes that you haven't opened, these probably wouldn't be bad ones to put in the attic or in the basement and hold on to a couple of years. I could see these going for a pretty high amount, 2-3 years down the road. And especially we'll see how this class shakes out from a performance perspective, but it might not be a bad idea to, like I said, hold on to these, and because one of the best and easiest ways to make money in the hobby is through wax.
Yep, for sure. And being such a strong rookie class, it'd be a good thought to put your sealed wax in the closet and wait and see.
If I had a concern or complaint, I guess I don't know how to accurately describe this, is the one thing I've been thinking about, and I'm going back to the chases, so the exclusives, high gloss, the real valuable cards from Series 2. I've been thinking a lot about the relationship between the physical cards and opening hobby boxes and e-packs. If you go on Reddit or other places, you're seeing a lot of people are pulling some of these real short print serial number cards out of e-packs. And I don't know about you, Troy, but it kind of has diminished the opportunity from a hobby box. I mean, it's nice to get the standard Cider, Raymond, Young Guns. You're pretty much guaranteed to at least break even on your box. But it does diminish to me a little bit of the chase and the thrill of, could I get $1,000 card out of this box?
Yeah, because if you're thinking, you got a short print out of 100, and you're in your head, you're like, okay, that's all. It's all through the hobby boxes that are being sold at LCS and all that. And then all of a sudden you look at it and you see like 3 or 4 of those are now pulled out of e-packs, which I get why Upper Deck does that. but now that in your mind, you're like, I don't have as good a chance as I thought I did. And that definitely diminishes, the value in that way.
Mm-hmm. So again, just wanted to give a quick, reaction and overview to the first week of Series 2. We're going to keep following it. We'll follow prices and any notable cards or any other unannounced different variations that pop up along the way. From there, I want to roll right into our new releases. There is a big new release coming up. It's about a week or so from now, and that's the 2021. So here again, Troy, we're in this weird stage with new releases where we have to almost go back and forth between different seasons. And we just had the 2021-22 Protect Series 2 release. Now the next release out of the gate is a pretty big one. Like I said, it's the SP Authentic, but 2020-2021. So here the chases again are Kaprizov, Lafreniere, Sorokin, Jason Robertson, Bowen Byram, just to name a few. Couple notes right out of the gate. It looks like a bunch of pre-sales are up. Pretty expensive, it seems like. That's what the reaction we've seen from a lot of people. Hobby box pre-sales right now are about $425. One interesting note, though, about that price is I went back yesterday and looked at if I wanted to buy a 2019 box, right? So if I still want to chase a Future Watch auto from Shesterkin or Cale Makar or Adam Fox, anyone in that class, those are going for about $470. So not a big difference. And I was actually surprised by that. I think that it probably means like what we're seeing is that the 2020, the new release coming out, the 2020-21 season is probably a little bit over, or could be a little bit overpriced, but there's not a big gap there. From a design perspective, I'm pretty excited. And, this is we try not to take a lot of these moments, but a Rube Minnesota Wild moment, the Future Watch Auto Kaprizov, where they put him in I don't know if it's not really a retro uniform because it's all the current Wild branding, but they used the North Star's colors.
The color scheme, yeah.
And they only had the jersey last year so that would have been the 2020-2021 season. And they didn't use it at all this year. It's brilliant. I want this card so bad, I'll sell one of my children to probably get it. I'll sell the I don't know which one. I'll have to figure that out. So I don't know. What's your thoughts on SP Authentic?
From that Instagram post, the amount of comments we got on the price kind of took me by surprise. I didn't really have a good frame of reference. So it seems like it is coming in at the high end. But yeah, I'm kind of curious that, the 2019 boxes at 470 with, Makar and Shesterkin, that actually intrigues me a little bit. So I might think,
you'd almost have to
I could probably just go on eBay and
find the single you want, but you'd almost have to gauge how many of the big cards have been opened already. I don't know if there's even any way to do that. So I don't know. This might be one that you ultimately break if you want, or it seems like a pretty tough chase for given at that price from a hobby perspective. Or like you said, the better route is just to go and buy the single you want. And even if Kaprizov goes for $1,000, you're probably not going to get him if you buy 2 hobby boxes anyways, and you've already spent essentially that much money. Taking a quick look at beyond SP Authentic, it seems like the next release will be on July 12th, and it's looking like Synergy. That's at least according to Blowout. Pre-sales for hobby boxes are very similar to Series 2, and they're at about $100. I'm not the biggest fan of Synergy. You can, though, get good values on numbered rookies and rookie autos if you're just looking for a particular player. And again, this will be now flipping back to 2021-22. So this will be the next release that'll have the Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond and Cole Caulfield, Trevor Zegras, and all those guys. It's beyond confusing even talking about this stuff.
Yeah, it's confusing, but it's another. I'm not a Synergy fan either, so we're right there. But it's a value player if you want to get it cheap. But I have zero interest in it.
After Synergy, then there's a big blob, I don't know, for lack of a better term, of that all the big card sellers have, in the end of July. A lot of them are using July 27 as their holding date, I guess. So this is for brands like Black Diamond, Allure, Clear Cuts, and Artifacts. These would all be 2021, 2022. So the Caulfield, Zegras, Sider, Raymond, McTavish, that whole rookie class. And we'll keep you guys informed as, when those dates shake out. But like I said, what we do know is the 29th of this month is SP Authentic for 2020 season. And then July 12th looks like it's Synergy for 2021. One final note on new releases, just to, again, take a little bit of a step back. I did notice, Troy, that price for stature boxes for the 2020 season have come down a little bit. They're down about 10%. They were selling initially at $200. Now you can find them. I found them at $180, and maybe some others have found it even cheaper.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, because we've talked about how $200 just didn't seem like a value to rip it. You're better off doing breaks or buying the card you want. And even $180, I mean, it's getting a little more enticing, but I would still like to see it come down a little bit more.
Yeah, anytime you have an 8-card box, it's going to be very high risk, high reward. Okay, so now it's time for our favorite part of the show, personal pickups. Troy, you want to start off?
Sure. I only have 2 pickups this week. So in previous episodes, I have talked about my love for Pelle Lindbergh, the Philadelphia Flyers goalie who tragically passed away in a car accident. I actually had his rookie card, but it was just raw and it was kind of beat up. So I made an effort to go out and I wanted to find a PSA 9 of it. And I was able to find one on eBay. I bought a PSA 9 Pelle Lindbergh 1983 OPC rookie. And then I was out there searching around. I actually found the 1985 OPC Pelle Lindbergh Memorial card where it's got the years of his birth and death on the bottom of it. And I actually got that for a really good price. I think it was like $35 is what I ended up paying for it. Another PSA 9. I now want to look for the 85 Topps version of the Pelle Lindbergh where it doesn't have the memorial on it, the dates, but that was my 2 pickups. So I'm super excited. As a kid, he was my favorite goalie. I love Pelle Lindbergh. I love his rookie card. I've talked about it before. It's one of the most iconic goalie cards that I've seen. And I'm super happy to add these to the collection and put them in the case.
Cool. So a little bit, I don't know, boring week maybe for me for personal pickups. Well, I guess not boring in the sense I bought some hobby boxes and had fun opening Series 2. Had pretty good luck. Nothing crazy, but good value in both the boxes. Mm-hmm. I did try to buy another, I think it was from our last week's show. I had bought a Topps Finest 1996 Jaromir Jagr insert cool trade, a refractor, and actually found another one at a really good price that I made an offer on, and the offer was accepted. I got the card today. It had a crease in it, so I'm returning it, which kind of sucks. But boo. So really, other than the Series 2, that's been it. All right, guys. Well, that's our show for the week. Thank you again for listening. The support continues to be amazing. We are having so much fun producing the show each week, interacting with you guys on social media. So please continue to do so. If you're not already following us on Instagram, please do so at Hockey Cards Gongshow. You can also follow us on Facebook as well. If you're listening to the podcast on Wednesday, the 22nd, that would be the day of Game 4. Enjoy Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals, and we will look forward to talking with you next week. Have a great week, guys.